Hey everybody, it's Thursday, means it's time for your Thursday Thought, and I thought I'd do a quick video on inspections and kind of what they are and what they aren't. So if you are a buyer, you go under contract, and they're really the first two things you do in that first week, really. Well, maybe three. Number one, you deliver your earnest money, right? Number two, the sellers typically provide you with the seller's property disclosure as well as lead-based paint if it's applicable, or square footage disclosure, or source of water disclosure. So you review those documents, and then you do your inspection. That's typically kind of the first three things you do in those first couple of days of going under contract. And sometimes my buyers have thought that the inspector is just kind of like guru on all things house, and I always like to kind of temper that and say they are a general inspector, and so they go through and they look at things that are readily apparent. So they open all the doors, they open all the windows, they check all the outlets, they look for cracks, they look for leaks, they look under the sinks, they run all the water, they flush all the toilets, and then they are just looking for visual items like exposed wiring, different things along those lines. Now, so that's what a general inspector does. And so what they aren't is they aren't a foundation expert, and they aren't an electrician, and they aren't a plumber, and they aren't a roofer. And so they're going to point out some things that they see that might be cause for further investigation. And so it's really key to have a big enough inspection period, but then also get your inspection done early in that period so that if the need arises for you to bring out a specific trade, like a roofer or an electrician or a plumber or foundation guy, whatever the case may be, that we have ample time to make the phone calls, schedule something, go back out to the property, have the expert in that field look at that issue and tell us whether it's how concerning it is before we get to our inspection objection deadline. So just keep in mind that the general inspector is not a foundation expert, and he's not going to be able to give you a ton of advice, which I know is sometimes frustrating for buyers to be spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars to have somebody come out and look at the property, for them to kind of shrug their shoulders and say, I don't know if it's bad or not. But keep in mind that they, again, just do the general inspection, and then you have to do further investigations if there's any issue that comes up on the general inspection. Other things that a general inspector will do that I always encourage would be a radon and a sewer scope, at least here in Colorado Springs. With some expansive soil that we have and some movement that we have on the west side, getting that sewer line looked at is super key. I've even had sewer line issues on new builds in Banning Lewis with Oakwood. So just spend the extra money and have the sewer line scoped. It's super, super critical. And then radon, I guess depending on the house and the scenario, you can make a decision, but it's always worth getting that radon test done. So that's my thought for you on inspections. Two key takeaways I would say are, remember that the inspector is just a general inspector and not a specific trade. And number two, give yourself ample time when buying a house in the inspection process to get your general inspection done early, and if you need to bring out the extra trades. Don't cram those days in there so you don't have time to do your full due diligence. Hope that makes sense. Hope you have a great day. Thanks for tuning in to this week's Thursday Thought, and we'll see you next week on next week's Thursday Thought. Ciao.